Book of Heaven, Volume 16, Part 1. J.M.J. July 23rd, 1923. The divine will is in continuous encounter with the creature in order to give her its goods. I was abandoning all of myself in the holy divine will, according to my usual way, and my sweet Jesus made himself seen, coming toward me, in order to receive me in his most holy will. And he told me, "My daughter, my will is in continuous encounter with the will of the creature, and as the human will encounters mine, it receives the light, the sanctity, the strength that my will contains. My will is in continuous act of giving itself to the creature in order to give her the life of heaven in advance. If she receives me, she remains with this celestial life. But if in every act they do, creatures do not receive this supreme volition that is all intent for their good, on making them happy, strong, holy, divine, and as though transformed into a dawn of celestial light, they remain with their human will alone, that renders them weak, miserable, muddy, and surrounds them with vile passions, such as to arouse pity. Don't you see how many souls drag themselves along because of their weakness in being unable to conquer themselves to do good? Others who don't know how to dominate themselves. Others, inconstant like reeds in the blowing wind. Others who don't know how to pray without 1,000 distractions. Others, always discontent. Others who seem to be born to do evil. These are all souls who do not encounter my will in all their things. Yet my will is there for all. But because they shun it, they do not receive the good that my will contains. A just pain for one who wants to live of her own will, involving herself in all miseries. However, this will of mine, that they did not want to encounter in life, when it would give them as many goods for as many times as they would encounter it, they shall encounter at their death, giving them as many pains for as many times as they shunned it, because in shunning it, they have rendered themselves guilty. They have stained themselves and covered themselves with mud. So it is just that they receive a pain, and as many painful encounters form for them for as many times as they have not encountered my will upon earth. But these painful encounters shall be without merits, without new gains, as would have happened had they encountered it in life. Oh, how many moans of sorrows come from the prisons of purgatory! How many shouts of desperation can be heard from hell, because my will was not encountered on earth. Therefore, my daughter, may your first act be to encounter my will. May your first thought and heartbeat be to encounter the eternal heartbeat of my will, that you may receive all my love. Try to make continuous encounters in everything, that you may be transformed in my will, and I in yours, so as to dispose yourself to make the final encounter with my will at your last hour. In this way, you shall have no painful encounter after your death. July 24th, 1923. The soul who possesses the divine will possesses Jesus more than if she had his continuous presence. The human will is the life and the deposit of all the acts of the creature. I was feeling very oppressed because of the privation of my always lovable Jesus. I was saying to myself, everything is over for me. As much as I look for him, he does not come. What torture! What martyrdom! But while I was thinking of this, my adorable Jesus made himself seen as crucified, laying himself over my poor person, and a light that came out from within his adorable forehead told me, "My daughter, my will contains my whole being, and the one who possesses it within herself possesses me, more than if she had my continuous presence. In fact, my will penetrates everywhere, into her inmost fibers. It counts her heartbeats and thoughts. It makes itself the life of the most beautiful part of the creature, her interior, from which her external works arise, as though from a spring, rendering her inseparable from me. On the other hand, if my presence does not find my will in the soul, it cannot be life of all her interior, and she remains as though separated from me. How many souls, after having enjoyed my favors and my presence, because the fullness of my will, its light, its sanctity, was not in them, have engulfed themselves in sin again, have taken part in pleasures, have separated from me, because that divine will that renders the soul untouchable by any sin, even the slightest, was not in them. Therefore, the purest, the holiest, the greatest works are formed in the one who possesses all the fullness of my will. See, in the creature also, her will has supremacy. So if there is will, she has life. If there is no will, she seems like a tree that, while having a trunk, branches, and leaves, has no fruit. In the creature the will is not thought, but gives life to the attitude of the mind. It is not I, but gives life to the gaze, because if it has will, the eye wants to see, wants to know things. Otherwise, it is as if the eye had no life. The will is not word, but gives life to each word. It is not hand, but gives life to the action. It is not step, but gives life to the step. It is not love, desire, affection, but gives life to love, to desire, to affection. But this is not all. Though the will is life of all the human acts, once the creature has performed them, she remains stripped of her very acts, like a tree loaded with fruits is stripped by the hands of the one who picks them. On the other hand, the gazes she has given, the thoughts she has formed, the words she has spoken, the actions she has performed, remain as though sealed within her will. So her hand has operated, but her action does not remain in her hands. It moves beyond, and who knows where it goes? While in the will, it remains there. Therefore everything is written, formed, sealed, in the human will. And if it is so in the human will, only because I cast into it the seed, the likeness to mine, think yourself of what my will must be within myself, and what it must be if the creature lets herself be possessed by my will. July 27th, 1923. Jesus makes the deposit of the goods, the effects, the prodigies, and the knowledges that his will contains in one creature, to then give them to others. This morning, my sweet Jesus made himself seen in a wonderful way. He was standing upon my heart. On it he had placed 2 bars, over which he had formed an arch, and in the middle of it he had fixed a little wheel with 2 ropes, one on the right and one on the left, and a little bucket hanging from it. And Jesus, all hurriedly, would make the little bucket descend into my heart. Then he would pull it up full of water, and would pour it over the world. He kept drawing and pouring, in such a way as to flood the earth. It was delightful to see Jesus, as though hurrying, dripping with sweat because of the effort he made in drawing so much water. I thought to myself, how is it that so much water comes out of my heart, while it is so small? And when did he put it in there? And blessed Jesus made me understand that all that apparatus was nothing other than his will, that with so much goodness had operated upon me. The waters he was drawing were the sayings and the teachings on his adorable will, that he had placed in my heart as though in deposit, and that, more than water, he was drawing, wanting to water the church in order to give her the knowledge of his will, so that it might be fulfilled as he wants. Then he told me, "My daughter, I did so in the Incarnation. First, I deposited in my dear mamma all the goods that were needed, so that I might descend from heaven to earth. And then I incarnated myself, forming the deposit of my very life. From my mamma, this deposit came out as life of all. The same shall be with my will. It is necessary that I make the deposit of the goods, the effects, the prodigies, and the knowledges it contains. After I have formed the deposit in you, then shall it make its way, and shall give itself to the other creatures. Therefore, see, everything is prepared. The deposit is almost complete. There is nothing left but to dispose the first ones, in order to make it known, that it may not remain without its fruit." July 30th, 1923. The soul who enters the divine will is the celestial flower. I was fusing myself in the holy divine volition, and my sweet Jesus, on coming, told me, "My daughter, every time the soul enters into my will, to pray, to operate, and to do other things, she receives as many divine colors, one more beautiful than the other. Don't you see how much variety of colors and of beauty all nature contains? These are the shadows of the variety of colors and beauty that my divinity contains. But whence do plants and flowers acquire such variety of colors? To whom did I give the office to color so many varieties of plants with so many varied tints? To the sun. Its light and its heat contain fecundity and variety of colors, such as to embellish the whole earth. And if the plant merely exposes itself to the kisses of its light, to the embraces of its heat, the flower opens up, and as though returning its kiss and embrace, it receives the tints of colors and forms its beautiful complexion. Now, the soul who enters into my will is symbolized by the flower that exposes itself to receiving the kiss and the embrace of the sun in order to receive the various colors that the sun contains. And by returning them, she receives the different colors of the divine nature. Truly, she is the celestial flower that the eternal sun, by the breath of its light, has colored so well as to perfume heaven and earth, and delight the very divinity and the whole celestial court with her beauty. The rays of my will empty her of what is human, and fill her with what is divine. So one can see in her the beautiful rainbow of my attributes. Therefore, my daughter, enter often into my will, to receive the tints and the various colors of the likeness of your Creator. August 1st, 1923. All creation brings the I love you of God to the creatures. God gives his will to the soul, so that she may requite him for the love he has given in creation. I was feeling very afflicted because today my son, Jesus, did not rise over my poor soul. Oh God, what pain to spend one day without sun, always nighttime. Now, while I was feeling pierced in my soul, I had the good of looking at the starry sky, and I said to myself, how can it be that my sweet Jesus no longer remembers anything? I don't know how the goodness of his heart can bear not letting the sun of his lovable presence rise, when he told me that he would not be able to endure without coming to his little daughter, because the little ones cannot be too long without their father. So many are their needs that the father is forced to be with them, to watch them, guard them, and nourish them. Ah, does he not remember when he would carry me outside of myself and take me up there, even under the vault of the heavens, in the midst of the celestial spheres, and strolling together with him, I would impress my I love you in each star, in each sphere? Ah, I seem to see it in each star, my I love you. Ah, it seems to me that in that glittering of light that forms around the stars, they resound among themselves with my I love you, Jesus. Yet he does not listen to it. He does not come. He does not let his sun rise, that eclipsing the stars with my I love you may make of them one with his own. And so rising again in the midst of the celestial spheres, I impress anew, I love you, Jesus. Oh, please, oh, stars, cry out loudly, make my I love you resound, so that touched Jesus may come to his little daughter, to the little exiled one. Oh, Jesus, come, give me your hand. Let me enter into your holy will, that I may fill the whole atmosphere, the azure heavens, the light of the sun, the air, the sea, everything, everything with my I love you, with my kisses, so that wherever you may be, if you look, you may look at my I love you and at my kisses. If you hear, you may hear my I love you and the smacking of my kisses. If you speak and breathe, you may breathe my I love you and my anguishing kisses. If you work, my I love yous may flow in your hands. If you walk, you may tread my I love you and the roaring of my kisses under your steps. May my I love you be the chain that draws you to me, and may my kisses be the powerful magnet that, whether you want it or not, may force you to visit the one who cannot live without you. But who can say all my nonsense? Now, while I was thinking of this, my adorable Jesus came, all goodness, and showing me his heart opened, told me, "My daughter, place your head upon my heart and rest, for you are very tired. Then we shall make our round together, that I may let you see my I love you spread over the whole creation for you." So I embraced him and placed my head upon his heart in order to rest, as I felt the extreme need of it. Then afterwards, as I was outside of myself, but always clasped to his heart, he added, "My daughter, to you, who are the firstborn daughter of my supreme will, I want to make known how the whole creation, upon the wings of my eternal volition, brings my I love you to the creatures, and the creatures upon the same wings of my will, making it their own, should give me the requital of their I love you. Look at the azure sky. There is not one point of it in which an I love you of mine toward the creature is not impressed. Each star, and the glittering that forms a crown around it, are studded with my I love yous. As each sun's ray extends toward the earth to bring light, each drop of light carries my I love you. And as the light invades the earth, and man looks at it and walks on it, my I love you reaches into his eyes, into his mouth, into his hands, and extends under his feet. The murmuring of the sea murmurs, "I love you, I love you, I love you." And all the drops of water are as many keys that, murmuring among themselves, form the most beautiful harmonies of my infinite I love you. The plants, the leaves, the flowers, the fruits, have my I love you impressed in them. So the whole of creation brings to man my repeated I love yous. And man, how many of my I love yous does he not have impressed in his whole being? His thoughts are sealed by my I love you. The beating of his heart that palpitates in his chest with that mysterious sound, tick, 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 is an I love you of mine, never interrupted, that says to him, "I love you, I love you." His words are followed by my I love you. His movements, his steps, and all the rest contain an I love you of mine. And yet, in the midst of so many waves of my love, he is unable to elevate himself to requite my love. What ingratitude, and how grieved is my love left. Therefore, my daughter, I have chosen you as daughter of my will, so that as faithful daughter, you may defend the rights of your father. My love absolutely wants the requital of the love of the creature. In my will, you shall find all my I love yous, and you, by following them, shall impress your I love you within mine, for yourself and for all. Oh, how content I shall be in seeing the love of the creature fused with mine. And this is why I give you my will in your power, so that one creature, defending the rights of my love, may requite me for that love that I have given in creation. August 5th, 1923. In order to form the redemption, Jesus opened the doors of the divine will to his humanity. In the same way, in order to fulfill the Fiat voluntas tua, he opens again the doors of his will to a creature. I was fusing all of myself in the holy will of God, and my sweet Jesus, investing me with a supreme light, told me, "My daughter, if my supreme will had not let my human will enter into the divine will, my humanity, as holy and pure as it is, could not have formed the complete redemption. My human will would have lacked all seeingness, and therefore it would not have been able to see everyone. It would have lacked immensity, and would not have been able to embrace all, omnipotence, and would not have been able to save everyone, eternity, and would not have been able to take everything as one single point, and to remedy everything. So the first role in redemption was of my divine will, the second of my humanity. If it wasn't for the divine will, redemption would have been for few and limited in time, because not having the light of the all-seeingness that makes one know everyone, I could not have extended myself to all. So, in order to form the redemption, I did nothing other than open the doors of the supreme will to my humanity, doors that the first man had closed. And giving my humanity free field, I let it operate the redemption within the very bosom of the supreme will. From that time on, no one else has entered my divine volition to be able to operate as the owner, with full freedom, as if it were his own, so as to be able to enjoy all of its power and the goods it contains. My will in me is like the soul to the body, and if doing my will has been the greatest grace for the saints, as it entered into them as though by reflections, what shall it be not only to receive its reflections, but to enter into it and enjoy all its fullness? Now, if in order to form the redemption it was necessary that my humanity and my will have access to this divine will, so now, for the fulfillment of the Fiat voluntas tua, on earth as it is in heaven, it is necessary that I open again the doors of my eternal will, that I let another creature enter, and that, giving her free field, I let her do from her greatest to her littlest act in the all-seeingness, immensity, and power of my will. As you enter into it and emit your thoughts, your words, works, steps, reparations, pains, love, thanksgivings, the Supreme Volition shall coin all your acts, and they shall receive the divine image with the value of divine acts, that being infinite can make up for all, reach all, and have such ascendancy over the divinity as to make this supreme will descend upon earth, bringing the goods it contains. It shall happen as to metal, to gold, to silver. Until the image of the king is coined on it, it cannot be given the value of currency. But as soon as it is coined, it acquires the value of currency, and it circulates throughout the whole kingdom. There is no town, or village, or important place in which it does not enjoy its prestige of currency, and there is no creature who can live without it. Whether its metal is vile or precious, it does not matter. As long as the image of the king is impressed on it, it runs throughout the whole kingdom, enjoys supremacy over all, and makes itself loved and respected by all. In the same way, everything that the soul does in my will, since the divine image is coined on it, runs through heaven and earth, has supremacy over all, does not refuse to give itself to whomever wants it, and there is no place in which its beneficial effects are not enjoyed. Now, while he was saying this, we prayed together, and Jesus let my intelligence enter into his will. Together we offered to the Supreme Majesty the homage, the glory, the submission, the adoration of all created intelligences. At the contact with the Supreme Will, a divine image was impressed in the homages and adorations, and they diffused over all created intelligences like many speaking messengers that place themselves in order in the creation, and all of them as though in relations with the Supreme Will. But who can say what one could see and comprehend? My most sweet Jesus added, "My daughter, have you seen? Only by entering into my will can all this happen. Therefore continue to make your gazes, your words, your heart, and all the rest of you enter into it, and you shall see surprising things." Then, after spending more than 3 hours in the divine will, doing what Jesus would tell me to, and together with him, I found myself inside myself. But who can say everything? I feel that my poor intelligence is incapable. If Jesus wants, I shall continue to speak. For now, I stop here. You have reached the end of the Book of Heaven, Volume 16, Part 1. Fiat.